Welcome to Midweek Politics. It's the week of December 9th, 2009. MidweekPolitics.com is our website. And Lewis completely ripping apart a pair of headphones over there. What's going on, Lewis?
They're falling apart.
You know, we're doing the show.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm ready.
Waleed Shabat is going to join us a little bit later. Former terrorist. He's been on the show before. He is in favor of this legislation in Switzerland to prevent the building of new minarets. So we'll talk to him about that. We'll talk to him about his background. A lot of controversy around Waleed Shabat, and we've had him on the show a couple of times. Hello to Access Fort Wayne and everybody listening in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where we have some friends, Lewis. I wonder if they'll catch the show now that it's on there. Not that they couldn't have seen it.
We'll get a call if they do.
Not that they couldn't have seen it or heard it over the last 4 years, but I guess that's some of the friends we have. I guess that's not atypical, right?
Great friends.
So last week, I completely lost my voice. We had a best of show last week, and there was no TV show. Never really happened to me before. I literally could barely talk, so we had no choice but to put together a best of. And it was Bob Ney, Congressman Bob Ney, the Freedom Fries congressman, plus 3 interviews with the I guess we could call it religious right crazies that we've had on the show. Shirley Phelps Roper and Joseph Chambers and Ray Comfort, all fascinating interviews.
Fascinating. Well, yeah, I guess fascinating.
Fascinating and bizarre,
yes.
I guess we could say. The Barack Obama Afghanistan speech. Long story short, he's sending more troops with what he says is a limited timetable and limits on the number of troops. The speech, to me, Lewis, sounded very, very much like George W. Bush. It even included some of the same language, same rhetoric that we're used to from George W. A lot of liberals disappointed with it. Here's a couple of examples. Countless references to 9/11, whether or not 9/11 should be the key factor in decisions. Rudy Giuliani also, we know, is known for mentioning 9/11 as much as possible, repeating that this is not like Vietnam and therefore whatever, saying, and here's a direct quote, I think this is verbatim from a George W. Bush speech, "The cause is just and our resolve is unwavering." I mean, that is a quote from a George W. Bush war on terror speech that Barack Obama used. Now, just because they say similar things in some parts of their speech doesn't mean that they are similar in the ways that they govern. But the speech, a lot of people were disappointed with it. And let's listen to Barack Obama saying that he will be sending 30,000 more troops.
As Commander-in-Chief, I have determined that it is in our vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan. After 18 months, our troops will begin to come home. These are the resources that we need to seize the initiative while building the Afghan capacity that can allow for a responsible transition of our forces out of Afghanistan.
So the big news, 30,000 troops going to Afghanistan, and here's Barack Obama with some additional thoughts.
We have been at war now for 8 years, at enormous cost in lives and resources. Years of debate over Iraq and terrorism have left our unity on national security issues in tatters and created a highly polarized and partisan backdrop for this effort. And having just experienced the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the American people are understandably focused on rebuilding our economy and putting people to work here at home.
Well, and for those who said it sounds like Obama took too long or he did take too long, he said, hey, I did put some long thought into this.
I do not make this decision lightly. I opposed the war in Iraq precisely because I believe that we must exercise restraint in the use of military force and always consider the long-term consequences of our actions.
Okay, and the day after this speech, Admiral Mike Mullen was on Capitol Hill, and he talked about why he thinks the president's decision to surge in Afghanistan is the right one. And a lot of military people coming out of the woodwork, maybe that's not the right term, but saying they agree with Barack Obama's decision. Admiral Mike Mullen, just one of them.
That is why the president's decision for an extended surge to Afghanistan of 30,000 additional forces is so important. It gets the most U.S. force into the fight as quickly as possible, giving General McChrystal everything he needs in 2010 to gain the initiative. It validates our adherence to a counterinsurgency approach, and it offers our troops in Afghanistan the best possible chance to set the security conditions for the Afghan people to see our commitment to their future, for the Karzai government to know.
Okay, so we know all the reasons why. Now, if we believe that the timeline that he set is going to be a strict timeline, there's one way we would interpret this speech. If you don't believe that it's a firm timeline, that it's a strict timeline, that it's going to depend on the specifics of what is going on at that time, then the speech takes on a little bit of a different character. And many people think that it is not going to be strict. We're going to act like it's a strict timeline to hope that the Afghani army and military and police take over, but that it is, if the conditions aren't such that we can just leave, that we will not, and that it will be a much longer commitment.
Right. Is it ever a strict timeline? I mean, how can you predict what's going to happen? How long you're going to need to keep troops there? Yeah, I'd imagine that's almost impossible to predict.
Well, the big thing with the Bush administration was that if you set the timeline, that foments the enemy. They can just wait until that time. This is a step in the sense that they are setting some kind of timeline. The question is it a strict timeline, or is it just to see how they react to having a timeline? They being the Afghani government. I don't know.
Right. I think the smart thing to do is not establish any timeline.
So you're with Bush on this. You don't like timelines.
Well, I just think it's kind of pointless, and ultimately...
But Lewis, no timeline is how we're in a lot of this, right? I mean, if had there been a timeline set, we might have already been gone.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think obviously Iraq would have been in shambles regardless of any timeline, and we can't just leave it in shambles.
You don't think setting a timeline is actually real, so you might as well not do it. Not for this reason that we are aiding and
Timelines are
abetting.
just completely fake things.
We're not aiding and abetting the enemies by setting a timeline. You just think it doesn't matter. It's all fake.
It has, yeah, basically. I think it's just something the American people want to hear.